Silent gravity. The ancient art of becoming someone who cannot be ignored. There are people who walk into a room and something shifts. Not because they are the loudest. Not because they demand attention, or perform for it, or arrange themselves to be noticed. Something subtler. Something older. A quality of presence that arrives before they speak and lingers after they leave. You have felt it. That particular stillness surrounding someone who seems utterly unbothered by whether or not they are being watched. That gravity. Where does it come from? Today, we explore that question not as a technique to be learned, but as a truth to be embodied. Part 1. The music of restraint. The Stoics understood something that most of us spend years unlearning our conditioning to discover. True presence does not demand attention. It radiates from calm clarity, from the subtle strength of someone who moves through life with purpose, composure, and the rare discipline of knowing when not to speak. There is a magnetism in restraint that performance can never replicate, because performance can always be sensed by something beneath the conscious mind, something ancient and discerning that recognizes the difference between authenticity and effort. Most people move through life on a kind of autopilot, reacting to opinions before examining them, responding to criticism before understanding it, reaching for approval without asking themselves why they need it so urgently. Each reaction leaves a mark, not always visible, but felt. Over time, this pattern makes a person predictable, easy to read, easy to manage, easy to overlook. But the person who pauses, who measures the response before offering it, who allows silence to exist without rushing to fill it, that person becomes interesting, not because they have performed interest, but because they have created space. And space, in a noisy world, is extraordinarily rare. Part 2. Authenticity as the only foundation. Restraint without substance is just distance. And distance cold, unexplained, deliberate, is not magnetic. It is simply absent. True restraint is different. It is rooted in something genuine, in the alignment between what you believe, what you value, and how you actually move through the world. Silence without substance feels hollow. Silence rooted in truth feels magnetic. Many people spend their lives adjusting themselves to fit the shape of the room they are in, changing opinions to match the majority, hiding interests to avoid judgment, filtering personality until only fragments remain carefully curated, carefully performed. This exhausts them, and it diminishes them, because what others sense beneath the performance, beneath the careful management of image, is the absence of a self they can actually trust. The Stoics called this alignment, living according to nature, the practice of existing in coherence with your own values, your own reason, your own truth. When your thoughts, words, and actions move in the same direction, when there is no gap between who you are and how you appear, something settles, something stabilizes, and that stability, that rare, quiet coherence, draws people the way warmth draws them toward a fire on a cold evening. Not because it performs, because it simply is. Part 3. The language the body speaks. Before a word is spoken, the body has already said something. The steadiness of a gait, the calm with which one enters a space, the unhurried quality of gesture that signals a person who is not desperate to arrive somewhere faster than they already are. This is the language of presence, a vocabulary written not in syllables, but in the tension or ease of muscles, in the quality of stillness, in the energy that precedes the introduction. People read this language before they realize they are reading it. The mind takes in coherence and registers, reliable. It takes in steadiness and registers, safe. It takes in deliberate pace and registers, considered. None of this requires a single word to be spoken. It is already there in the space between the door and the seat, in the pause before the answer, in the quality of attention offered to whoever is speaking. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the alignment between inner conviction and outward expression. The understanding that authenticity manifests most powerfully when it is expressed through the body, not just the mind. To move with quiet certainty is to communicate character before character is ever explained. And character, communicated this way, does not need to defend itself. It simply stands. Part 4. The Art of the Pause. Silence is perhaps the most misunderstood tool available to anyone who wishes to carry weight in a room. Most people treat it as an absence, something to be filled quickly, apologized for, covered with words before it becomes uncomfortable. But the person who understands silence knows something different. The pause is not empty. It is the most loaded moment in the room. When you allow a pause to exist, when you resist the impulse to speak simply to fill space, something happens to the listener. They lean in, they attend. They begin to sense that what comes next was chosen rather than reflexive. And chosen words carry weight that reflexive ones never do. Seneca observed this with characteristic precision. Restraint enhances perception. The person who speaks carefully signals that they think carefully. The person who does not rush to respond signals that the response will be worth waiting for. Over time, this creates a kind of authority. Not the authority that announces itself, not the authority that insists, but the quiet authority of someone whose presence implies depth, even before depth is demonstrated. Part 5. Full presence as rare gift. In a world of fragmented attention, of eyes drifting to screens mid-conversation, of minds already composing responses before sentences are finished, the most powerful thing one person can offer, another, is this: to be truly, completely, unhurriedly present, not performing attention, not waiting for a turn to speak, but actually here with every faculty directed toward the person in front of you, toward the words being spoken, toward the meaning beneath the words. When someone experiences this, when they feel genuinely heard for perhaps the first time in weeks, something opens in them. They do not consciously analyze it. They simply feel it. This person sees me, and that feeling, that rare, specific warmth of being truly witnessed, is more compelling than almost anything else one human being can offer another. Carl Jung wrote about this, the way the psyche responds to authentic, undivided attention. How it creates a mirror in which one feels recognized, valued, and met. The person who offers this gift does not need to perform charm, does not need to construct attraction. It arrives on its own, because you made someone feel that their existence mattered in this moment. That is not a technique. That is a kind of grace. Part 6. The mystery that invites. Humans are built for exploration. We are drawn to depth, to layers, to that which is not immediately available, to the sense that there is always something more beneath the surface. When everything is revealed at once, curiosity is satisfied immediately. And what is immediately satisfied is quickly forgotten. But when something remains unexplained, not fully offered, hinted at rather than declared, the mind returns to it. Involuntarily, repeatedly, with a quality of attention that nothing obvious ever receives. This is not manipulation. It is the natural consequence of authenticity combined with restraint, of being genuinely complex and not rushing to explain that complexity before anyone has asked. The person who does not over-communicate, who does not offer everything in the first 5 minutes, who allows understanding to develop at the pace of genuine interest, invites the world to lean toward them, not because they have constructed mystery, but because they have resisted the anxious impulse to eliminate it. Epictetus said, "Control over what we reveal and how we act is a cornerstone of personal freedom. To choose what you share and when is not withholding. It is curation. The difference between noise and music is not the presence of sound. It is the choice of which sounds to let through." Part 7. Composure in the storm. Here is something worth noticing. When tension rises in a room, when conflict arrives, when expectations collapse, when everything accelerates toward reaction, most people accelerate with it. The impulse to defend, the urgency to explain, the need to restore equilibrium as fast as possible, even if restoring it requires saying something that should not be said. And then there is the other kind of person, the one who slows down when everything else speeds up. Marcus Aurelius called this the practice of equanimity, the capacity to maintain inner sovereignty, regardless of what arrives externally. Not the suppression of emotion, not the performance of calm, but the genuine discipline of acknowledging feeling, without being governed by it. You feel the tension. You simply do not become it. This composure, this measured stillness in the middle of someone else's storm, is perhaps the rarest quality a person can carry. Because it is not taught, it is not inherited. It cannot be performed without being eventually detected as performance. It is only cultivated through repeated practice, through the slow accumulation of moments where the reaction was available and the pause was chosen instead. And people feel it. The nervous system of the room orients toward steadiness, the way a compass orients toward north. Not consciously, not because they have decided to, but because something ancient in us recognizes composure as safety. And safety in a turbulent world is profoundly, quietly, irreversibly attractive. Part 8. Self-respect as silent signal. The way one tends to oneself with quiet consistency, with unhurried attention to detail, with the dignity of someone who considers their own life worth caring for, communicates something before any conversation begins. Not vanity, not performance of perfection, but the specific signal of someone who has decided that they are worth the effort. The small consistencies accumulate, the posture maintained, the clothing chosen with care, the quiet rituals of beginning the day with intention rather than urgency. None of these announce themselves, but they are perceived in the way that anything genuine and consistent is eventually perceived, as evidence of something reliable beneath the surface. You treat yourself as someone worth treating well, and people who witness this begin, instinctively, to treat you the same way. Epictetus taught that freedom is cultivated through mastery of self, and self-care, quietly understood, is a visible expression of that mastery. Not the care that performs for others, the care that exists even when no one is watching. Especially then, closing the quietest presence. Everything we have explored today converges on a single truth. The most magnetic presence is the one that does not need to be magnetic. It has stopped performing. It has stopped explaining itself. It has stopped reaching for validation that was never the right measure of worth. And in that stopping, in that release of compulsion, something extraordinary becomes possible. Actual presence. The kind that does not fragment under the pressure of others' opinions. The kind that does not accelerate when the world demands speed. The kind that does not collapse when it is not immediately recognized. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, only what you do." That tranquility is not indifference. It is the deep, settled freedom of someone who has located their center of gravity inside themselves, and who moves through the world from that place, rather than in constant search of it. You do not need to be louder. You do not need to be more visible. You do not need to explain yourself more thoroughly or perform more convincingly. You need only to be grounded, aware, and true. And from that groundedness, from that alignment between thought and action, between value and expression, between who you are and how you move, the room will feel it before you have said a word. The quietest presence often leaves the loudest impression, not because it tried to, because it was real.